Hi guys, we are at our BloomLive episode 8, which is coating your artworks in resin. Hi guys, while we let some people join up as usual, just let me know where you are viewing from. Hi guys, hi Patricia. I'll just set myself up a little bit better here. Nice to see you guys again. Hi Roxy. Hi Joyce. Wow, lots of people want to learn how to resin their blooms. Hey Deb. Thanks for coming guys. I've been a little bit excited about this one. We get lots of questions about clear coating resin. Oh, hi Shannon. Hi. Pennsylvania, USA. Do we have some people? What time is it in the USA? It's nighttime, obviously. Oh, between 8 and 11. So, oh, okay. That's quite a big difference in time. If you're in the 11 o'clock area, thanks for staying up. I'm normally asleep in bed by then, so appreciate your commitment. Hey Lisa. Hey Vanessa. Hi Susan. So I just let a couple more people join. Yeah, let me know where you're from. And I just wanted to just remind you guys that as we are, oh hi Deb. Oh, thanks for joining. I thought you were going to bed, Deborah. Nope. You're back up to watch the live. Awesome. Hey Lisa Marvin. Hey Cheryl. Okay, I just wanted to start off by saying I have done a lot of resin in my time since I've been blooming, but I don't know everything about it. I'm just going to be showing you today the clear coating. We're not going to go into colored resin pours. It's basically just so that we can direct people to this video and you can learn how to clear coat your bloom paintings. A lot of you are already doing it. I'll probably get pulled up by some of the really amazing resin artists that are in the group that, you know, they're resin artists for a living. They probably do know a lot more than me, but I know enough to get you through your fear if you haven't quite wanted to take that jump into resin yet. It can be quite scary and it doesn't really need to be like that. It is quite simple when you get the hang of it. Hi Alison, I hope you got your pigments from the office the other day at the school. Oh, that's Alison, one of my kids' school teachers. Yeah, so just a bit of a disclaimer. I don't know everything, but what I do know is definitely going to be enough to get you started. So probably, yeah, so I'll just remind you guys first to please keep the questions when it gets to question time. We need to keep, look, ask me anything that you like, even if it's off topic, but the actual video responses for the questions will be about resin, because when we direct people coming into the group that want to learn about the resin, you're scared, Donna, don't be scared. It's not that scary. As long as all your safety's in place, it's fine. Yeah, we don't want it getting jumbled up with me answering completely different things. We just want to keep it on the resin topic for what I answer in the actual video and demonstrate. So yeah, that would be really nice. If you do get your question missed, as usual, I will jump in afterwards and yeah, get to every single question after the live cross is finished. But yeah, so keeping it on clear coating only. Okay, so where do we start? I think probably the best place to start would be the equipment that you need. It's quite a big list. All of it is pretty important. You can't really just swing into a little resin coating pour without having all the specific things that you need in place. Safety is a massive thing. So let's just run through one by one what you will be needing if you are going to clear coat your blooms. Obviously, you're going to need the resin. So a lot of you probably already know that my favorite resin is the Barnes resin. It's the epoxy glass, specifically for clear coating and doing resin pours. There's a couple other things that's good for there. on the list, but yeah, I use it to clear coat mine. So it comes in a part A and a part B. Yes, they look different colors, but when you mix them together, they go crystal clear. So look, because I can't get the Barnes resin overseas to you guys, I have tried that, but yeah, it's Australia and New Zealand only for the Barnes. The alternative I feel that is closest would be the art resin. It's the same 1-to-1 ratio resin as the Barnes. You can get 2-to-1 ratio, but I prefer to do the 1-to-1 ratio. It's just a little bit easier to calculate when you're mixing it. And yeah, I just think I've had better results. I've tried 2-to-1s, I've tried 1-to-1s. The 1-to-1 ratio are definitely all over it. So we are stocking the art resin on the Fluid Art Co website in the USA. And yeah, so you'll have no problem using that. They're very similar. They're both beautiful, thick, on the thicker side of the resins, which is really important to me. I don't really like really runny resin. You have to end up putting too many coats on to get that thick layer. So another thing is I usually always end up doing 2 coats. The reason for that is you might have noticed, if you have been, playing with the resin a little bit, yeah, it's pretty hard to get the perfect coat first time round. Probably have to end up sanding it, which I'll go into a little bit later, and giving it that second coat just to get the depth of the resin and get everything. You might get a little bit of dust or something in it the first time. It's quite easy to just sand it down. It looks absolutely terrible when you sand it. You think, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm ruining this beautiful glassy shine, but it's not going to damage the resin at all. It's basically just going to give the surface of your first coat that has cured, it's going to give it the teeth or the grit or the texture for the next layer to fuse on top of it when you do your second layer. You can sand back. I'll go into that more later. Look, we'll go through the safety equipment first. Okay, so the most important thing is you've got your resin. You'll need cups to mix it in. You can go fancy and get cups that have measurements already on there. I go through a lot of these just with, I mix up my pouring medium and stuff like that in there too. They're about 50 cents from the paint store. You can reuse them. I tend to be able to get a little bit of the lip of the dried resin out of here and peel most of it out and wipe it out, but sometimes you have to toss them. It just depends how successful you are at getting that bit out. You can leave a stick in there. And the little bit of resin at the bottom, you can squeeze the cup a little bit like this, and if you're lucky enough, you can pull the stick out and it will pull the dried resin out of there, but you'll still have to give it a good wipe out with some baby wipes and tidy it back up. If you don't have access to a professional measuring cup with all those crazy numbers on them there, which are quite hard to decipher anyway, I just basically pick, I pick a 50, 100, 150, and then obviously just put the part 2 in up to there. The cheats way, which I was doing it for ages before I found the measuring cups. It's just how I go. Hardest first, Shelley. There's a bit of a simpler way to mix little bits of resin. So I've done this in a couple of my videos, and it might not be quite as accurate as the measuring cup, but it's good enough. So if you're wanting to just mix a little bit up for a small painting, I just go by eye now, but if you want to calculate your resin perfectly to cover a certain size, the Art Resin brand, get on Google and Google Art Resin Calculator. So what that will take you to is a little thing like a currency converter. It's just got the 2 bars, so you put in the dimensions of your painting in centimeters or inches. You can change the measurement thing on the side. And it'll give you an exact amount for that surface. Now, Art Resin claim that is enough to push over the sides and cover the sides as well. But I always give it that, I always round it up to you just want that bit extra. It's always good to have just a little bit too much rather than a little bit too not enough, because it's just, if you don't put enough on, you get really stingy and skimpy with your amount. you're probably going to be, you know, you might even have to do 3 coats. I don't know. It can get quite thin, and you might get ditches and speckles, and it can pull in from the side of the surface when it's curing. So it's a good idea. Just, you know, if it says 42 mil, just go to 50, just to be sure. So my little simple hack for flies love resin too. I haven't even opened the bottle yet, but he's there waiting. He's waiting. Okay, so I've got my cup here that I want to mix my resin in, okay? A little trick I found with these cups, it's another awesome thing that's happening here in Australia with my art supplies, is this particular cup's got little ridges on it. And after doing a few bits of measuring in it, I realized that the first ridge and the second ridge are exactly 50% apart. So I tend to use these quite a bit, and I fill it up to the bottom ridge, and then I fill the part B to the second one, and I know that it's exactly 50-50 because I've measured it with a measuring cup with water. But today the paintings aren't going to be that big, so I wanted something smaller. So for one of them I'm going to use the measuring cup, and for the other one I'm going to show you how to do the little hack at home, which I'll just show you that now. So basically I've just made a mark on the cup roughly where I think I want half the resin to go to, because I want it to end up with about this much. So that little marker there, it doesn't even matter where you put it. You can roughly guess, you know, anywhere sort of down here on this cup, put the marker on. So you fill that up with water, then you tip it into the second cup, and you mark the second cup, right? Then you tip that water out, you fill this up again to the same line, and then you put it on top of the water that you've already put in this cup, and then you make your second mark. That's how you can get a little cheats 50-50 of your resin mix in here. Okay, so we've got the resin, we've got the mixing cups. We need some mixing sticks. Paddle pop sticks are fine, or reusable ones, whatever you've got there. For a while there I was just running out of sticks and paddle pop sticks and things left, right, center. I started attacking the cutlery in the drawer, and we started running out of things to eat with. So yeah, get yourself stocked up with some mixing sticks. You will also need little cups to put your bloom on top of, or your painting on top of, because obviously you can't just put resin on top of a painting that's sitting flat on the ground, or the resin's going to come over and stick your painting. You know, that's a pretty simple one. You've got to have it towered up off the ground. Okay, so mixing cups. You will need one of these. Resin is self-leveling, so once you pour it on, it's going to head whichever way your painting is sitting. So it's so much more important to have a level handy with resin. It's not as important with fluid art unless you're using a really thin pouring medium mix. For the thicker bloom mix, it's not so important. But yeah, definitely with resin, I've made mistakes before where I haven't had it quite right, and you'll notice that one side of your painting has quite a big domed edge on it that's quite thick and high, and then you get to the other side and it's very thin and it's pulling back from the edge, and it's not quite doing the doming thing because it's been pulled all the way up to here. And you might only be like a millimeter out with your measurement, but it's going to make a big difference. I'll quickly just touch on one little subject of why I think you should spread the resin with a card or a scraper or whatever you want, really. You don't have to go buy a professional resin smushing, smoothing tool with the teeth in it or anything like that. You can get away with anything with a flat edge. I tend to buy big sheets of just, craft cardboard, and I just slice them up with a Stanley knife, so I can get all different sizes of cards, for different, sometimes, just use my earring, they're like business cards. You can use business cards, you can use credit cards, anything, as long as it's quite straight and level and doesn't have any oil or anything like that on it, then it should be fine. But yeah, so the reason why I recommend spreading it with a card or a tool instead of, you see some people pouring the resin on and then picking it up and doing these ones, like, that's okay, but how do you know when you put it back down that it's going to be perfectly level again, like you checked to start with? You could put it down a different angle, or then you messed up. So you want to level your piece first, and then don't move it. Get that resin on, it's going to be nice and level. Okay, so that's the level. Now, we've done the cards. You should probably, if you're going to get serious about it, I would buy some decent, thicker style gloves. I don't have any at the moment, so when I don't have any, I just use my normal ones, but I always do double gloves on both hands. The reason for that is you don't want resin on your skin. A lot of people think that you just shouldn't breathe it in. And that is number one. Breathing it in is definitely the biggest no-no, but you also don't want to get the vapor in your eyes, and you definitely don't want to get any of it on your skin at all, because it will make its way into your body through your skin as well. So double gloves if they're thin, single gloves if you get a really good pair that's going to protect you, and they're not going to split or get a hole in it if you accidentally knock something while you're wearing them. Okay, so gloves. Okay, so this is what I wear. We had a bit of an accident ordering motorcycle goggles for my son on eBay, and he picked these psychedelic looking rainbow goggles. And then, of course, as eBay rolls, we didn't really read the fine print properly, and it was like assorted colors, you may get any color. So he was like 7 when he got these, and so he palmed them straight off to me. And I've been using them as my resin goggles. It's really important to have some sort of eye protection. They don't have to be this hardcore. These are pretty full on. But yeah, even just some, as long as they're covering your eyes, so it's stopping that vapor from attaching itself to your wet eyeball as it rises up off the resin. This is overkill, but they were perfect for me, and they're comfy and stuff. So I use the motorcycle goggles, which is quite funny, but anyway, I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I'll do the most important one last, the respirator. You will need tape, unless you really love sanding resin, which is, look, you're going to have to probably wear your respirator and your goggles if you're going to be sanding resin as well. I can't stand sanding resin. It's my least favorite job in the whole world. So getting yourself some really good painter's tape that you might use on the bottom of your bloom to stop getting paint on it, which I kind of stopped doing a little while ago because I had a few, people that were buying my paintings that were like, yeah, we love seeing like the paint on the back. It makes it really authentic and whatever. So I was like, great, that's awesome. It means I can pump out so many more without, taping those backs up so the back looks absolutely perfect. That's a personal choice, but yeah, I don't really bother taping the back of the blooms. But yeah, it's really important with the resin that you get, also depending on the size. So I'm going to be resining this one today. So I need something that's thicker than that. I don't want it exactly to the bottom because I've got a little trick where I leave the tape hanging and the resin drips off it, which I'm going to show you when I do the demonstration. So find out what depth your board is that you want to resin, and then go find the tape that's a little bit thicker. So I'm also going to be doing this little bloom today as well. I'm going to paint the edge of this after I resin it. I'll probably just paint it white or something. So I've picked this tape for this one. So as you can see, it's definitely deeper than the board. So I'm going to get that little bit of overhang, which I really need for those drips to drip off. Okay, so that's the tape. Really handy to keep a packet of baby wipes, just because it is messy. You can, if you get a drip on something, like, for God's sake, cover your table. Don't just think you're going to be, really good at it and not spill any, because it can be really hard to clean up when you do spill it. So, wipes are just always good for drips and emergencies and accidental spills or whatever. Okay, so the respirator. Now, because I don't do a lot of resin work, if I was pouring with resin every day of the week, this wouldn't be good enough for me. I'd be looking for, so I'll start that again. So the respirators come in lots of different types, and they range from quite cheap to actually quite expensive. They can go up to around you know, $300 or $400 Australian, which is, you know, $300 US. That's going to be a serious respirator, and there's going to be nothing getting through that. This one here, $50, $60 from Bunnings in Australia. I just use this one as long as it's got a double chamber and not just a single chamber at the front. You do need to have that double chamber. It's really, really important. This is good enough for me because I don't do that much resin work. But yeah, like I said, if I was pouring every day, I'd go for the best one I could possibly find. They have a, you know, the better ones have a squarish kind of, what do you call it? Filter. Here, a bit more shallow, and you'll know from the price, and you can read what the respirator is there to protect you from as well. You know, talk to the guy at the store, tell him that you're pouring with epoxy resin and you want something decent that's going to do the job for that. So the other thing is too, depending on your face shape, you might put this on, and for me, the air comes out here because just the shape of my face didn't fit. This isn't, you know, it's a one size fits all. It's not there designed to suck onto your face perfectly on the shape of your nose and your cheeks or whatever. But if you do try it on and it's not really sealed, and you don't hear that Darth Vader, that like coming through though, it sounds really crazy actually. It's quite scary when you first hear yourself breathing through it. But yeah, you can feel the air coming in and out of these filters. And if you do feel them moving and you hear that Darth Vader noise, you know you're wearing it properly. Okay, so I'll deal with some of those questions later. I'm seeing some really interesting questions coming through, but yeah, can't wait to get to those ones. Okay, so if it doesn't fit like really properly and you can feel the air coming out certain places, look, there's probably better things you can do than this, but I just rolled up this and popped it inside there like that. And just, you know, because I'm not really wearing it for very long. I'm just clear coating like a couple of blooms, and then I can take it off. So it's kind of really important to get that seal happening. So use whatever you feel you can to tuck that in there. Just something soft that's going to be soft against your face, and seal that little part wherever that air is coming out. Get it to fit your face a little bit better. Okay, so that is the respirator. Very, very important. Don't pour without the respirator. I'm going to be pouring without it today, but after I've finished doing each pour, so I'm going to work quite quickly after when I start mixing it up, because I do have an insanely good, you know, it's like a commercial bloody, what do you call them? What do you call them? You know, those filtery, no, the exhaust system. That's what it is. The big exhaust. Yeah, it's a massive exhaust fan. So if you look up here, you see this brown pipe. It's connected to a really big, I keep forgetting what they call, the air filter thingy. Yeah, it's connected to the big machine. Anyway, it's quite noisy and it sucks all the fumes up into there. My hubby built a big long, like a plumbing tube connected to it, and he put lots of holes in the side, so it's sucking from a lot of the area up the top here, and it's going to be sucking those fumes out. But still, I'm not going to be keeping these in here while I finish the BloomLive. I'm going to be showing you how to do it, and then as quick as I can, I'm going to be taking these outside into a different room in my garage and putting them down, and I'm going to cover them with another one of our essential products, which is the food tent. So I'm going to take, so after you finish pouring it, I'm going to show you how I've set up my little catch tray there. And then these just pop out, like, of course in Australia we have these freaking awesome huge ones. Like, we have all the best stuff. We've even got the cool food nets. So these come in all different sizes. This is probably a bit overkill for what I'm doing today, but it's all I've got. So I'm going to take it outside, pop this over the top of it, and over the top of that, because this is not enough for resin. This is enough for fluid paintings. It'll protect your fluid paintings from bugs and And you know, the dust and that isn't really that visible on the paintings, but I'll tell you now, if you try to cover your resin with this and you don't put a sheet over the top of it, you're going to be very disappointed in the morning. It's going to be very, very dusty, because even though this is going to keep out flying bugs, which are attracted to the resin, by the way, so it's got to be sealed really well with the sheet, because they love it. They'll come to the edge and try to get under and get onto that resin. They just absolutely, they're so attracted to it. I don't even know why, but yeah, they love it. So yeah, covering it so that you don't end up with hair and dust. If you've got pets, you know, resin could be quite frustrating for you. I've got the 2 dogs in there, they're just molting constantly, and even though I try to clean everything up, I mean, there's even hair in here because they walk in here, and if it gets up in the air, it tends to just sort of be really noticeable on that finish. So that'll probably be your biggest frustration, actually, is keeping the dust out of your resin pour. But yeah, if you quickly get it under the tent and pop the sheet over the top, you should be all good. And you've always got that second chance to with the second coat. So yeah, you can sand that dust out, and you can go up to 3 coats actually. I wouldn't go any more than 3 unless you're doing a coloured actual proper resin pour, where it doesn't matter how many layers you've got. With a clear coating, 3 is always my max. It tends to, you know, too many layers of the resin, and you start to sort of lose your visual a little bit of the painting underneath, and it can tinge a bit yellow over time if there's too many layers on there that have been sanded in between. And yeah, so I can go 3, but I would definitely cut it off after 3. If you're wanting the resin if you're wanting the resin to cover the sides, I personally don't like shiny sides because I feel like it's not even enough, because it does come down and it pools a little bit at the bottom, and I just get really fussy and OCD about it not being smooth on the side, because it's constantly trying to self-level off the side. It becomes a little bit sort of rocky. So lots of people do like the shiny on the sides, so I will show you as well how to tape up the bottom to stop you getting the drips on the, well, you still get the drips on the bottom, but you can heat it with the heat gun, and then you can just peel them off. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways of the taping which we will go through, so that's why you might need a Stanley knife. It makes the tape really easy to slice off here so that it's really perfect on the edge, because if you get a little bit of tape sticking out, you know the resin's going to pool on that, it's going to stick to it, and it might become a problem when you're trying to get that off. So yeah, that has to be pretty perfect. The taping is quite an important part. What else have we got? Okay, so you're going to need to pop the bubbles, because all epoxy resin has air in it. The Barnes and the Art Resin both have the air release technology, but it's still not, it's going to keep trying to pop its own bubbles through the curing process, but it's not going to be enough. It's going to start curing while they're still trying to come up and pop. So if you've ever done what I did once, and I just forgot to torch it for some stupid reason, and went back, you'll know that all the little bumps, you know, all the little air bubbles are trying to come up and pop, but because the resin's getting thicker and thicker and it's starting to cure, it's not going to let them out, and they're going to set in the thing. So yeah, popping the bubbles. Now, if you're doing coloured resin pours, obviously you know what this is. It's a heat gun. I would use this only for coloured resin pours. You can pop the bubbles with it, but look, I'm telling you now, it's like a fan. It's not just the heat, it's actually blowing air out, and it really can blow dust all over your clear resin. So not my choice for actually torching the bubbles. We're going to use an actual proper blowtorch for that. But this is good for heating the resin up and melting it when you're doing the coloured pours. So I won't be using that today. I'll just pop that away. What I will be using is one of these little refillable guys here. So they come in all shapes and sizes. You can get a really big whoop-de-doo, fancy, crazy, dangerous looking flamethrower. But I'm kind of scared of those big oxy tanking looking. Yeah, they're just, you know, crazy to me. Unless you were doing something like the size of a big bench or like a huge table or something like that. This is well and truly good enough. They just refill with this stuff. It's quite easy. You just pop it into the bottom and go shh, and when it makes that funny noise, you just pull it out and it's filled up again. You do need to be careful with this. You can't hold it on the surface for too long. So I'm just going to show you how just sweeping across it really lightly and finding an angle where you can see that you've popped all the bubbles and you haven't missed any, but don't keep going over the top of it, and sweep across it really quite quickly, because if you've ever seen resin that gets overheated by one of these too much, it's quite scary. It almost like catches on fire. It just does a big smoky part, and then that part that smokes is going to turn yellow because you've basically overheated the resin, you've ruined it, you've torched it. You know, your only bet probably is to scrape that resin off and do a fresh pour on the top of it. If you see that smoking, if you see that the actual resin smoking. I've set all sorts of things on fire. I've set the drop sheet on fire. I've set the tape on fire. I used to resin inside a 3-man tent until my husband said, Shelley, you do realize if that tent goes up, you will never get out, because I seal myself in there so I don't get any dust. And then I like zip open the bottom and roll out like a ninja. And I thought it was really cool. I said to everybody, hey, go fucking go to the camping store and buy a tent. Do all your resin in there. And then I was like, no, don't. Because yeah, very dangerous. Don't put yourself into a sealed area that can catch on fire. Bad idea. So yeah, the torch is dangerous. Treat it with respect. Be really careful with it. And yeah, try not to, you know, flame anything that's around your painting. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, so I've got that. All right, so let's have a little bit of a look down here at what I'm actually going to use as my drop sheet here. So I like to use vinyl. Well, it's vinyl, you can probably get it anywhere, but it's really well known for being tablecloths. So these little party ones are like $2. You can use them over and over because the resin, when it cures on there, it basically just, and it's really satisfying to do it too. You just get your little fingernail under there and pick it, and the blobs just peel off of the sheet, and it's totally reusable as long as you don't, you know, rip a hole in it as you're getting those little bits off. So obviously I've just got a upside down, you know, art board here. And I've just, instead of just putting it straight onto the art board with my cups and then having to deal with all this resin build up here and then having to, you know, waste this board and throw it out with resin stuck to it, we're just going to put a little bit of a little layer of this stuff on here, and I'm going to tape it on so that the wind doesn't catch this cloth and flip it up on top of my resin painting. Same deal if you're going to be using this sort of thing for your fluid art. I learned a really good lesson last week about taping it down, because I was pouring in the house and I opened the door on this piece of cardboard with some of this on it, and the wind caught both sides and it just went straight on top of it. And yeah, it's not good when you peel it off. There's just pillow left, so nobody wants to see that. Okay, so that's the way I surface prep for where I'm going to actually pour. Okay, what are we up to? So they're the tablecloths. You can use that for spreading it around if you want. Tear the back of a magazine off and cut that up. Anything can spread resin. I don't particularly like to do it with the glove. I don't know why I don't really get the best result from that. I don't get the most even result from that, but lots of people love it. So if you do want to have a go, I probably wouldn't trust these flimsy little kitchen gloves if you're going to be actually putting the resin on with your hand. I think I would definitely get a better pair than this if you're going to be using that hand to spread it around. I love watching people do it. It just doesn't work for me, so I never really took that on. Okay, so I'll get moving because I'm taking ages again. So what I'm going to do is show you first how to quickly tape up the back here. And this is really handy for your fluid paintings as well. So if you want to tape up your fluid paintings, this is a really cool way to keep the bottom good. So I'm just going to tear off bits. I'm not going to worry about making them exactly right because I've got my Stanley knife there. So you just want to get that on so it's really quite stuck on the edges there like that. Then we're going to move and do this side. Now you don't have to overlap all of the sides because that one's already there. We've only just got to go inside that one because this piece of tape's only really doing this side like that. Nice and hard down. As long as we're overlapping on the long side, on the bare side there, because we don't want to waste this tape because we all know how much this tape costs, right? That's that one. Now I've only got to cover that little bit there and we can start to trim it up. So you're going to make sure with this particular cutting with the Stanley knife that everything is really, really stuck down well and your Stanley knife is super sharp. And then you... Oh, Stanley knife. Am I saying Stanley? Yeah, we call them Stanley knives. I don't know. Tell us what they're called where you are, but we... Well, that's probably... Stanley is probably the brand, but... They're so well known for these knives over here that we just call them Stanley knives. It's like the guy's name, yeah, Stanley. I don't even know what they're called other than that. I've never known them to be anything different. But anyway, over here they're Stanley knife. But you know what? Just the little retractable ones that have the spare blades inside here. I don't know. Oh, it's a utility knife. Wow, it's got a fancy name. Stanley, who are you? I don't know if you've ever tried to undo this and take it apart and then put the new blade on and get this back together, but I don't know what is wrong with me. I can never get it back together so that it's coming back in and out. So I tend to just buy a new one when it goes blunt. They're not very expensive, so basically it's quite easy to just get that little bit off with a nice smooth edge there, and we can even just use that to help take that down a little bit. So don't try to go this way. It's really good to get the little lippy thing here, you know, so it's just, you're already on that line and it can just come along like that. And keep that as straight as possible. Don't know about going back the other way. Yep, that's all right. Okay, so that is how you're going to tape it up if you would like to. Well, that's how I would do it. If you want to have your resin coming down over the side and have a shiny everywhere. Okay, so that's one option, and that's the best one too. Just while I'm talking about that, instead of, if you were going to do it for the fluid art and you don't want any paint getting in there, you can go ahead and put a couple more strips of this across here. But as I was just saying how expensive this tape is, I prefer to cut a little sheet of paper. This is paper towel, but just computer paper or whatever, anything, and make it just a little bit smaller than the outside here, and then you do your taping across the paper. So what you're left with is this is underneath in here, and it's going to be really, really tidy in there with no mess at all. Okay, so that's option one. Option two is my favorite way. This is my favorite way of taping. Now, I don't really, I don't know, maybe other people do it like this, but I haven't really seen many. I do see people taping it to the very top here. The problem I feel with that is it can get really uneven, where the resin meets the edge. It's just, you really want it to kind of just be able to go over a tiny little bit. So when I tape down about 3, sometimes even 4 mil, and I leave that little lip at the top there. So the resin is allowed to, it can come over, and don't worry, because when you peel the tape off, you're not left with a huge, big rigid thing here. It's barely noticeable actually, but it just gives me the opportunity to have my sides here with that pearlescent shine from your paint, your glossy pouring medium paint or whatever. I like it that it's a different shine to the top, and that the top is just the really glossy part. And I just felt like taping it up almost to the top instead of trying to get it at the top just was a much better result for me, and I have stuck with it ever since. So I'll show you how I do that. And look, the other thing too is resin doesn't like tape joins on the side. So if you guys weren't here and I just had all the room in the world to do this, I'd probably pull off a really big piece of tape and try to make the whole round so I've only got one bit of tape overlapping. If you pull off little bits that are 2 or 3 inches long and start taping along, you're going to have your resin, for some reason it likes to seep down in between the joins, which is annoying, but yeah, you'll just get used to. Okay, so I'd say that's about 3 millimeters from the top there. Okay, so it's not at the very top, but it's almost at the top. You could basically call it the top. It's just dropped down a tiny little bit there. And you don't have to do it like this, you know, there's lots of different ways of doing it. But this is just how I found I got the tidiest result. I tried quite a few different ways. Then I was like, nope, I like to cover this part and just have that resin coming over the top a little bit. So I'll just tape up this last side. And the other thing is too, don't want too much tape overlapping, okay? Try not to have a big side of tape overlapping over the other side. Oh, that's not gonna quite make it. Having fun yet? Am I gonna make it? Yeah, I'm just gonna make it if I, maybe I'm not. Oh, that'll do. Come on, please, just make it. Oh, look at that. Nice one, Shelley. All right, I'll try not to waste too much time doing this. I'll just put a tiny little bit of a patch on there. So what I'll find tomorrow is that will probably be the part where I might have a little bit of resin seeping down in there. Okay, let's talk about the tape overhanging. Sorry about the messy back of the painting there, but some people do choose to pop it in like that. And that's fine. You can wrap it under like that, but you're just kind of making more work for yourself later because your drips are going to come down and they're going to come under and hang under here. Dot, 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 dot. We've probably all seen those annoying little resin drips sitting on the bottom of the tape there. If you want to do it this way and fold it in, that's fine. The resin will cure in the drops along here. You can use your heat gun in the morning and just sort of, you know, pick it back off or whatever. But I just find this is much easier because, as you can imagine, when I pour this resin now and it comes down over the edge, it's not even going to get a chance to sit on the bottom anywhere here. It's got no access to the bottom of my painting. It's going to drip off the bottom of the tape. And then tomorrow when I take the tape off, all of the drips at the bottom here are just going to come off with the tape. So that's why I choose that particular way of taping. So while I am taping, I'm just going to quickly do this one up because I am going to pour on top of this one as well. Now this one will just be try and get this one in one go. Now this one, I am going to tape to the top. Can you understand me with tape in my mouth? I'm taping it right to the top because this is going to be a little bit of a tricky one I'm going to show you. If you're still here in 6 hours at this rate, I might show you how to do a little bit of doming, self-doming. So we're going to tape it just in case we have a spill, but we're going to be hoping to get that resin on without any spilling over the edge. That's a really cool way to save your resin so you're not using as much, you're not wasting it, it's not going over the edge and getting wasted. And the other thing too is that if you dome it yourself on the edge here, and you don't overflow it over the edge. Oh, you're up here. And you don't push it over the edge, you end up with a much thicker coat on the top, because it's going to try to self-level, but it's only going to be able to self-level out to the edge, won't be able to go over. I'll explain a little bit more about that when I do that one, but let me just run through quickly the mixing. Okay, let's use this guy here. I'm not really fussy about which part goes in first. Just there's part A and part B. I mean, I guess you'll just go ahead and put part A in first, just because it says A, and that's what we're all, trained to think. Okay, so I'm just going to pour it in to 50. And another really good idea is, so the top of this lid, barns don't do it. Some have different coloured lids. Barns don't do it. Because they don't do it, I always just mark my hardener with a piece of paint or texture or something like that, because if you take off both lids at the same time, there'll be a few people out there laughing, because I bet you're not the only one that's done it. And you put the wrong lid back on the wrong bottle, you will never get them off. They will cure from the lid, the resin that's stuck in the lid and the resin that's stuck on the top of the bottle. You won't get you resin the lid to the bottle basically, and it's really frustrating because you can't even use what's left in the bottle. Okay, so I've tried to put 50 ml in there, but it's gone to 60. So now I need to put my part B in. I need to take that up to 120, okay? Because we want a double 60, so we want it exactly half and half. So because these are new bottles, it's a little bit more tricky. Okay, now you will notice that's perfectly 120. So I'll bring you up here so I can show you what that looks like. Okay, you'll see clearly that they look completely different, and they're ready to be mixed together in there at the 50-50 ratio. Now, I'm going to do this quite quickly because I want to get this piece out of here before I die from it. I mean, I love resin, but I'm not prepared to die from it. So we don't want to breathing that in for too much. So these cups, we're going to pop our tower down ready. Then we're going to get mixing. So I'm just going to pop that there. That's perfect. Perfect. Good job, the guys that installed this bench. And the cups and the board must be on point as well, because, yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so mixing the resin. Now, I don't believe it's true that you have to mix resin for 2 minutes. If I mixed this resin for 2 minutes, it would probably become way too hot. But if it was a big cup filled up to the top here, I would probably definitely then have to mix it for 2 minutes. The reason being is you want it to bubble right up. You don't want any bits of resin that are unmixed. So it's really important to scrape it down from the sides and across the bottom with your stick as well. Now, the bubblier the better. You want to see those bubbles in there. You want to get those bubbles really cranking, because that means you're doing a really good job mixing them together. So this, I might just turn that aircon up a little bit, because it's actually quite, just notice that the resin is still quite thin. And so, yeah, that's what we haven't talked about is temperature. So anywhere from 22 to 27 degrees Celsius, I'll pour in. If it gets over 27, the resin's probably going to be a little bit too thin and it might have a bit of trouble curing. And also, if it's too cold, it's going to be too thick. And you can also have problems with it curing. So you want to be pouring in around about the same temperatures that you're going to cure it in. This is going to be the first coat on here, and I'm going to sand it back and do a second coat later. So putting it out there, where it is a little bit hotter out there, it's probably 29 degrees out there today. It'll still be okay for the first coat. It's still going to cure okay and be hard enough for me to sand and pop the second coat on. So as long as you're seeing lots... okay, look, I'm only, the reason I don't have my respirator on right now is because you can't hear me talk when I've got it on, and I need to be explaining what I'm doing. So don't worry. A lot of these resin companies say that you don't need to wear a respirator if you're not pouring regularly, but look, I have to disagree with them, even though they're the makers of the resin. You should, I just don't think you should ever do it, but it's okay that I'm doing it this once today without it. And I'm going to put my gloves on when I pour it, don't worry. It's only a small amount in there. We definitely, yeah, I would definitely recommend that. Don't do this at home, guys. Purely for the video process. Yeah, it's quite important to have all that stuff in place. But look, I'm pretty experienced with it. I know what I can and can't get away with. This quick pour today should be fine. As long as I don't have it sitting next to me after I've torched it, because when you heat it up with the torch, that's, you know, when you mix it together and then you torch those bubbles, a chemical reaction happens between the two parts of the resin, and so, you know, it's even worse than you definitely don't want to be over the top of that when it's doing that. Okay, so gloves on. Let's just pretend I've got my respirator on and you can hear me. And we'll see if I've mixed up the right amount for this puppy. So I'm going to do double gloves because I've got quite sharp fingernails, and you never know when you might pop a little hole in it. It's really hard to get off too. If you do accidentally get some on your skin, some people say rub salt on it. There's all these kind of weird and wonderful old wives' tales of how to get it off, but really I found the only thing was like alcohol. You know, the kind of alcohol that you put in your painting to get cells if you think it's gonna, you know, act like the silicone. That type of 100% isopropyl or whatever. Yeah, that was the only thing I found I could get it off my, had a really bad accident once where I got it right up my arm, but that's a story for another time. Another little tip is I'm going to pour this on into a circle, then I'm going to quickly spread it out with my card. Then I'm going to torch the bubbles, and I'm going to get it out of this room and cover it with a tent and come back and talk about what just happened. I'm not going to talk about it while it's sitting underneath me. I just did want to say one thing. What was it? I'll remember in a minute. Okay, so we're just going to basically, you know, that was like mixed up a little bit too much there, but I'll take that cup outside as well. So basically, once you've got that pour on, we want to just take it out and just let it flow over the edge like a little waterfall. Do you see that? Okay, now you don't want to put the card hard on the edge and scrape it along, because you're just going to make the resin come back into the middle. Once you know, if you go really hard like that, it might not fill that little bit back in that you hit the canvas with that's made that little gap there. You might end up with some divots. So trying not to touch the actual canvas and just letting it go over itself there like that. I've found it just makes a really big difference, letting that little resin wave just flow over. Okay, now we don't want to be touching it too much. We just want to get that surface covered. And oh my gosh, you should see the shine of that pigments come out when you do that. It transforms it into something that it wasn't a second ago. Okay, so that's basically it there. It's very thin at the moment in this temperature. So I'm going to sweep across like that, making sure not to be right over the top of it. And that's plenty. That's popped all of the bubbles. I wonder if I can, oh God, I hope I don't hang up on you. Just a sec, let me just, I don't know. Let me just, oh gosh, where is it? I don't even know if you can see that. I'm too scared to turn it around in case I hang up on you. But anyway, let me put you back in there. Oh shit, that's nerve-wracking. I feel like I'm going to press the goodbye button. Okay, so that's that way. I feel like I'm not going to have a very good time trying to do the doming because of the heat and how thin the resin is, but I'll take this out and cover it, and I'll come back and quickly set up another one. Okay. That one just came out really beautiful. Sorry, guys. Right. So I've prepped up another little, okay, I promised I was going to get rid of that cup, so I'll get rid of that cup out there. Okay. I feel like there was something really important that I forgot to do with that one that I was going to show you. Had something I was going to say. Do you want me to take some questions and then I'll move on to the other little bit of a trickier way. For those of you, it's a little bit more of an advanced method, but it can be a really nice effect. I've got a lot of questions. Okay, let's get into a few of them before I do. All right, I'm gonna try my best to keep the answers short, okay, guys, so that we can get through as many as possible. Rightio, hit me. Okay, so the question is, why don't I resin the sides? And that is just a preference. It just depends if you like, it just depends if you like shiny sides or like really, really super glossy sides, or just, you know, pearlescent looking sides. For me, I've tried both quite a few times, and I just prefer to only have the top, sort of like a tile of glass on top of, so the shiny edges aren't really taking away from the star of the show, which is the top here. So yeah, that's just a personal preference. Okay, next. Okay, the question is Barnes heat resistant? The epoxy glass, which is the clear coating resin, is not heat resistant. You can make coasters and things with it. Look, I haven't had any problems with damage to the coasters with you know, cups of coffee and things like that. But what you can't put on it is, you know, boiling a scalding hot cup of tea that's really, really hot. So it's heat resistant to a certain point, but it's definitely not, it's not like a tabletop epoxy that can handle a boiling hot jug or coffee or tea on it. No, not this one. This is for coating your artwork with, and not sitting with a cuppa with. Okay, next question. Okay, Vanessa, great question. The question is, do I clean my paintings first? And the answer to that is no. I've never, ever cleaned a painting before I've resined it. That must just be the beauty of, you know, I mean, what we're using in this group, which is the My Pouring medium, doesn't have any kind of, it doesn't leave any sort of residue. I've never had any dimples or ditches or the kinds of things you see when people use silicone to do pours. I don't even know how they're cleaning silicone to enough to be able to pour resin on top of something that's had oil on it. But no, I just make sure it's definitely touch dry and there's no bits of moisture hiding underneath the surface anywhere, which can come up and kill your resin if it's not completely dry. But as long as it's completely touch dry, then yeah, you're ready to go for it. Yep, simple, no cleaning. Okay, next. Oh, bottom up, it's wet in here. Whew, it's hard work. Okay, good question, Karen. Karen asked, why do you have to sand the surface before doing the second coat? Now, look, you don't, well, I'm not even going to say that you don't have to, because really you do have to. You can go for it if you like, but the problem is it is really shiny and glassy and slippery, and it's not going to take that second coat and want it to stick to it properly. The idea of the sanding, and it's definitely recommended. You don't even have to go crazy with the sanding. I'll show you the sandpaper that I use quickly. I just buy, and it doesn't even matter what grit it is. You can use whatever you have. Probably wouldn't go for a sandpaper that's really, really chunky, because the only problem with that is if your resin coat is quite thin, you're just risking going through some of the thinner parts of the resin and sanding your actual painting underneath, which I've done a couple of times on the edges if you're not careful. But generally speaking, you just grab a block and wrap it around it, or I'm just so lazy. I just use it like that with my hand, and I basically I would say it takes me 20 seconds to sandpaper this size thing ready for resin, because it doesn't have to be perfect. All you're doing is making I call it like a tooth, like a gritty kind of surface for the next layer to really stick to, so it doesn't want to just slide off the edge because it's slippery on top of slippery, if that makes sense. Yep. Okay, next. Yeah, so what kind of sandpaper? I use the 120, but yeah, didn't even, ask for the 120. I just picked it up and had a quick look at it and went, yeah, that'll do. It's not really that important. You can use really fine to medium, just not the really chunky, coarsey stuff that's designed for like rough timber or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, okay. The question is, where did I buy my torch? I'm trying to think. Where did I buy my torch? Oh gosh. I can't remember, sorry. But I'll work it out and I'll put it back in the comments later, because it's the best one I've ever had. So I really do want to show you guys where I got this. I'm just trying to think where I got it from. Anyway, I won't waste your time thinking about it now, but I'll definitely tell you where I got this in Oz. But really, these little ones, they're brulee torches. So, kitchen store would probably have the biggest range of these mini ones, definitely, because I think that's what they're for, yeah, cakes and stuff. So the old brulee torch. But yeah, I'll add that in later. Yeah, okay. Another one? Okay, thanks, Kerry. The question is, how long do I wait after pouring my art before I put the resin on? So generally speaking, depending on how thin my paint is, if I've spun a painting out, like this one was spun out quite thin, it probably dried in about 12 to 13 hours. So I would just go for the whole, does it look dry? You start to know when your painting is touch dry. So as long as it's not looking shiny and moist in the middle there and still trying to do a little bit of its drying, and it's quite a thin layer, then as soon as it's touch dry, you can go for it. But I guess as a general rule, if you wanted to be sure, you could wait until it's touch dry and then just do it the next day, or 12 hours later, half a day later. So yeah, I have been known to just go, right, that's dry, I'm resining it, and it looks like it's on the dodgy borderline, but I've never had any problems with that. As long as you can put your hand on it and the bloom's not getting rubbed all over the place, then yeah, it's ready to go. Okay, so next, please. Yep. The question is, after I resin, do I do anything with the drips on the under? Not really 100% sure what you mean. Do you mean what do I do with the drips that drip onto the drop sheet? Is that correct? Like the wasted resin that drops off? Yeah, so I see what you mean. Like, how am I dealing with the drips that are getting stuck and happening immediately after the pour. So after it's, I'm guessing you mean after it's dry the next day, and you go to take your tape off. Like I was just explaining at the beginning of the video when I taped this up, the tape is hanging lower than the painting, so the drips are going to drip off the edge of the tape. They're not going to come anywhere near any part of this. The hard way is a lot of the really good resin artists seem to like to just kind of let it drip and hang on the bottom, and then I guess for them it's a matter of they've normally got a really nice timber wooden board under here that they want to sand anyway and get any kind of remnants of any drips or anything off there, and it also sands the back of their timber as well so that it's all really flush and beautiful. But with this style of just coating on the painting, yeah, that little hack of mine where it drips off the bottom of the tape is it makes it really clean. So basically the next day, I'm just trying to think if I've got any here. That probably wouldn't work anyway because I'm so slack. I know I've got some paintings there that do have the tape on there, and I've already resined the painting, but it was probably 6 weeks ago, and that might be embarrassing because the tape might not come off at this stage. I could probably give it a bit of a go over with the heat gun, which, and you can do that anyway. You can actually just, not the torch, guys. Let's not confuse this. This one here, you can feel free with this one when it comes time to take your tape off. Don't try to heat the top of it again, but just very, very gently heating it. So this tape's going to have resin all over it, and it's going to have dropped off the bottom. You won't even have drips on the bottom of the tape. It's just going to be a clean resin pour right down to the bottom of the tape. Should have had that respirator on. But yeah, if you want to give that a little bit of a helping hand, you can just gently heat it, and it melts the resin a little bit so that the tape's going to peel off quite smoothly. But I've never really had any problem with the tape peeling off. If you do get some little bits of tape stuck in the resin at the top here, it's really quite easy to just grab one of these utility knives and just nick the bit of the blue tape there, and it peels off. It's not a drama. So no, I don't ever have to deal with resin drips because of that hack that I think I made up. I don't know. I didn't see anybody else do it, so that was just something I came up with to help my own process. So yeah. Hi Bree, love your girlfriend. Next question. I'll do a couple more before I get stuck into the doming, which I'm worried about because it's quite hot in here. Go ahead. Oh, yes, okay. Sorry, go on. Oh, okay, so I'm going to show you the doming next so that you can ask me some questions about that. Michelle says, do I resin all of my pieces? I would say I resin 95% of my pieces. Couple of reasons for that is, you know, this piece here is quite spun out on the spinner, and I'll try and get the light on that so you can see. It's really not, see how the texture in that is quite, oh, it's making it look actually really deep in that light, but it's actually not that deep. This one's quite flat compared to some of the deepest cell activator crevices that you get. But I personally, sometimes I do a bloom or a swipe, and I actually love the pattern of the cell activator, and I do love how it drops down into the little, you know, the little places where the cell activator have sunk down into, and it's made it a little bit uneven. I really love the texture on some of the pieces. Like this one actually is looking really cool in that light there. But this piece was I brought out to show you something as an example, and I might as well just go straight into that right now because I can see it in that light. So when I did this pour, and I wanted to show you guys, because this rarely happens to me, but I work quite quickly. I'm like, you know, pillow goes on, bang, 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 blow, next one. Like, I'm really, really quick with the way I paint, but I see some of you guys taking a really long time and getting really quite fussy about it before you're spinning it out. Now, if your pillow is quite thick, you might have a little bit of a problem like what's just happened to me with this one. I don't know if you can see that line, that's the ring. So it's here, right? And it's here too. It's left a little ridge where the pillow started to dry before I actually got this to stretch out. And that's a really bothering thing, because once you put the resin on that, you will see resin covers lots of different imperfections. But what it doesn't cover is those types of ridges from uneven paint. It covers cracks and all sorts of stuff, and you don't notice them anymore. But that particular thing there, where I've let that pillow sit for too long before I spun this out, it's made a little border where it started to dry, and I've spun the painting out over the top of it, and I didn't even realize till it was dry that it's left a ridge of a circle on there. So this one I won't resin, because I can definitely get away with that. I can't really see that bad, but if I do resin that will come right out and be noticeable. So I don't want to do that, and I'm taking a really long time again to answer one question. I'm trying to get better at this. So yeah, so that's that. So if I really like the pattern and it's the right depth with the texture, I just do a couple of coats of varnish. It's rare for me not to want to resin everything, because obviously I use a lot of the pearlescent piggies, and the resin really does make those come to life like you wouldn't believe. The difference is just phenomenal. Like, gloss is great, but resin's just a whole different level of shimmer in the pig. It just lets that light get in and rebound back off and just makes it spectacular. But yeah, I do have I was probably being a little bit off with my 95%. I'd say it's probably more like 98%. And maybe there's just a few here and there that I think, oh, I really like. I'm not going to get that one down and show you, because there is one up there that just has varnish on it with a timber frame around it. I just loved it so much, I never wanted to even resin it. So, but there's quite a few bottles of wine standing up in front of it, so we won't go down that road. Okay, next. One bottle, Mum. One. Go on. Okay, so the question is, sometimes you do get a canvas that is a little bit, drops down a little bit in the middle. We all know what they're like. They can be a little bit loose sometimes, especially if they're cheaper and they're not quite gallery wrapped on the back sides. And let me just grab some size examples quickly so I can answer that question for you properly. Okay, so generally speaking, really, this is 10, is this 10 inch? This is a 10 inch canvas. I would probably, I used to say 12, but I've dropped it back down to 10, because even the 12s were giving me the shits a little bit, because I was having to go for the 3 coats, because resin doesn't like things that aren't level. And even though you can definitely get away with putting resin onto something this size, always make sure to check that it's really taut and tight and it's not flippy floppy in the middle. Quickly, while I remember, another thing that might make it flippy floppy in the middle is if you do a pour that you don't like and then you scrape it off, and your pillow, you do a fresh pillow and you do another pour, that canvas is already wet from your first pour. And what happens is, I don't even know why, but you go for the second one, it makes it a little bit more, wobbly in the center, just probably because it's had that double load of moisture straight on top of it, and it's just freaking out under the weight of the second one and the wetness of the first one. So yeah, try not to scrape off paintings and do them over and over again onto like a large canvas, because that can really make it get dodgily wobbly. Dodgily wobbly. Rightio, Shelley. You do hear lots of people say, oh, I'm going to pour resin in the back here and it's going to shore it up and make it all nice and rigid. Look, probably a lot of you are going to disagree with me, but I just say straight out, that does not work. I've tried it on all different sizes, and basically the only size it didn't really do anything strange to was this size, and the problem is you don't really need to put it in the back side of this size because it's not gonna falter under the weight of your resin. It's too small anyway. Look, I just wouldn't even go down that road. It can just sort of, like, I don't even know how to say it, but it makes it, it can make it really heavy when you tip it back over it. It can actually pull the canvas from the underside. It can pull it down, and you end up with a funky sort of weird looking ridge on the side here. So yeah, I just wouldn't even bother wasting your precious resin to pour into the back side. I think it's a, I'm not going to say what I really think because it's a bit rude. Just going to say I think it doesn't work. I don't really know why people do it. Maybe it's working on some canvases that aren't here, but it ain't working on mine, so I'm not wasting any of my resin pouring on the back where nobody can see because it's just pointless. Yep. So yeah, basically my rule is 10-inch canvases that are quite firm, good quality, no problem. Cheap canvases, God, you're probably not even going to get away with an 8x10, what size are they? 8x10? Like, you know, an 8x10. If it's cheap, it's still going to dip down in the middle. But yeah, you just have to be really careful too with your canvases when you do your first coat of resin, and you go to the part where you're going to sand it. With the canvases, the resin does tend to pull back in off the edge here, and it's probably to do with it sinking down a little bit in the middle. And resin does have shrinkage as well. So double whammy, sinking down, shrinking back from the edge. You might have some of your painting of your bloom that's bare here on the edge. Be very careful if you're sanding that first layer, because yeah, I've come a gutser plenty of times with the sandpaper on the edge here, and it takes off the paint. And you know, I tried to sit there with a paintbrush once and try to, you know, like painting the little bits of the bloom that were missing, and then in the end I'm just like, oh shit, Shelley, just either go to boards or yeah, stop torturing yourself. Okay, another one. Okay, so great question, Keely. Keely wants to know, she lives in quite a small home. Her kids are in there as well. Is there any kind of way that you can resin in the house safely with the children around? This is a really simple one. It's just no. You don't let your kids into a room where you've resined 2 days earlier, because you know that chemical reaction is happening. And it's letting off fumes for a few days, actually. Even after it's hard to touch, it's still, they say it still emits fumes off, like 2 to 3 days later, it can still be letting them off. So it's just definitely don't do it. If you don't have a space prepared, ready properly, with good ventilation and all of your safety protocol, all of your safety pieces in place and ready to go, don't even bother. Like, you might think that you can go into the spare bathroom and set up the floor, level it, do your resin in there, and then sort of get out and shut the door, go back in the next day and get it and take it somewhere else. It's not good enough, guys. Your children and yourself, your safety is not worth skipping that really important step of having a special space for the resin. And I just can't even... Yeah, I'm really passionate about that particular one, even though I'm sitting here with no mask on, resining in front of you. But this is different, you know. It's not a short video, Shelley, but it's, you know, it's just to get my point across to you guys. And I would never ever do it without my respirator otherwise. And you know, I've got a studio. I've got the amazing exhaust fan that I remembered its name straight away. And you know, I've got all the stuff in here, and my house is up the stairs, I'm in the garage. This studio is actually built in my garage, so it's not even connected to the house. So I can leave here, shut the door. Even though I would put all of my resin pieces under tents with sheets, there's no way I'm going to stay in here and do anything else. I'm going to get the hell out of here, because I know that it's come up into the air, and unless I'm going to sit here and try to, you know, nobody's going to be blowing blooms with their respirator on. So yeah, get it under the tent, get it covered, get the heck out of there. Yeah, Good point, Karen. Dogs as well, puppies, you know, like pets, just, it's no good. So yeah, you definitely need to have that designated area. Yeah, don't hang around in your studio. If you do have a studio, whether it's small or large, don't hang around in there after you've poured your resin, you know. Get out of there for the time it takes for it to cure, you know, 24 to 30 hours before you go back. And definitely don't keep peeking under the tent, you know. It's like, just want to see how that's curing and if there's any hairs or anything in it yet. I used to sort of do that all the time. I wouldn't be able to help myself, you know. Like, you don't open that tent for 24 hours. Just, no. Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure you guys are really safe and, yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. So I just heard a secret that Lisa is a peeker. Lisa, naughty girl. There's no point to peeking. What are you going to see that you won't see the next day? What can you do if you see something you don't like and it's half cured? Nothing. Don't peek. Right. Naughty. Okay, I'll do one more question and then I'll try to show you guys the doming, even though I think it might be a bit of a disaster this time because my resin's a little bit too thin from this heat. It needs to be on the thick side. You guys in America at the moment, have a good crack at this doming because, oh, the fly. It's really cool. It's not actually that hard. Actually, if you follow me on Instagram and you go to my little story highlights, there's one there called rolling resin. So if I totally stuff this one up, you can go to that little highlight that says rolling resin and you'll see me pushing the resin along the edge, and the little wave, it goes to the edge, but it doesn't go over the edge. It stops at that hard right angle, which is why it only works on boards, not canvases. Don't try to dome on the edge of a canvas because the canvas is not hard. You need that really hard right angle edge for that one to work. So, all right, I'll take another question and then I'll get into it. Okay, the question is, if I don't resin the sides, would I varnish them instead? I won't say I haven't. I have probably done that a couple of times, but it's not really, there's no real point with the Shelley art style because, as we know, we've got varnish in our, so I just really like the sheen that's left from, even though it didn't quite, this is the problem, I spun this one out so fast, see, it didn't even reach the bottom there. So I don't even know what I'm going to do with this one. I'll probably tape that up. I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll just give it away to my niece or something. She won't care. She likes drippy paints. But yeah, you can touch in those little missing bits there. But yeah, back to the question. No, I don't need to because my Jo Sonja gloss varnish that's in my pouring medium mix leaves it quite shiny anyway. I really, really like that particular level of sheen, which is probably why I like to leave it and just resin the top, because I really do want to leave that little bit that's got the different level of sheen to it. I think it really makes the top sing as the main event on the painting. Okay. All right, I'm going to give this a go. I'm really worried. I've turned the air conditioner up. If it does start to go over the edge, just keep in mind it's probably because the resin's thin today, and just pretend I'm doing a really good job at it and it's not going over the edge, and then head over to Instagram where I did the perfect one, and you'll be able to see how I really am telling the truth and I can do it. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways to do the doming. The rolling resin doming, which is just some crazy names I keep making up for stuff. The rolling resin. So the doming with the rolling resin is done, and I'm going to show you without the resin first because I have to quickly mix some more up in a second. Oh, actually, you know what I can do? I wonder if I can go out. Guys, I'm not putting the mask on. It's fine. I can get away with a couple of resin pours without the mask on. It's a low VOC resin. It's not going to kill me one go. Just hear me promise you that I don't do it. If I'm not having to talk, I'm not going to be, yeah, I do. I care about my health a lot, and I'm going to have it on all the time. I promise you, okay? Don't freak out. It's all good. Okay, so I'm just going to think about bringing this down. Let me just check my, might just plug you back in there, guys. All right, sorry, technical stuff. I just don't want you to drop out, so. Whoop, you still there? Oh, Shelley, you got to put it up through the thing. Okay, I'm not gone, am I, guys? I just don't want to make sure I don't want to lose you, so. Whoop, boobies again, sorry. All right, let me get you down here, where it might be a little bit easier to see. That looks good. Yep, okay. Now, so the way I would normally dome the resin is I would pour a puddle into the middle, just like you saw me do with the last one. And I'm gonna start to bring it out to the edge like this. Very carefully. I'm not gonna push too much out to the edge in one go because I really don't wanna break this bank here and have it go over. And a really important thing to remember about this particular way of doing it is don't worry if you do break the bank and it goes over at one point. It's not all going, look, it is going to drag some of your resin over into that river, but it's not going to drag as much off as it would if you pushed all the resin over the whole sides. It keeps pulling all the resin off. And even though that's an easier way, and I have had fails where I'm trying to do the doming and it's not working and too much is going over and I go, oh, stuff it. And I end up just pushing it all over. But it's good to have a little bit of a practice to see if you can nail it, because if you do, you'll be saving a lot of resin. You'll be getting a thicker coat. You might probably even get away with the one coat wonder, like I like to call it. You've got much bigger chance of getting away with one coat if you're doming instead of pushing it over, because obviously you're left with so much more. You're probably left with twice as much resin on top of your painting as you would be if you did it the other way around, the normal way. Oh, guys, I don't know if it's going to work. I'm committed, though. We're going to do it. Then I'll get it out so you can stop stressing about me. I know why you don't want me to get sick from it, because you want me to keep teaching you how to paint, don't you? Don't die, Shelley. All right, I've just used my little cup with the two markers. I'll be able to do this one like quite quickly because there's not much in there. Don't forget to scrape down the sides, guys. It's so important. And oh, I just remembered what the other thing was. Yes. Now, when you're pouring it out of the cup onto the surface, and this is why it's a really good reason to round it up to a bit more than the manufacturer says to use. If it's 450, go to 500. Put that extra 50 ml in, because you don't want to. I know you might want to scrape all the resin out of your cup because it's quite pricey stuff, and nobody wants to be wasting anything like that. But if you can help it, try to tip the resin out of your cup onto the surface, but don't scrape it out. Just leave that tiny little bit in there that's on the sides, because the chances are there is some unmixed resin on those sides and down the bottom. That's where all your unmixed resin, tiny little things you might not notice are going to be. So you want to scrape it down. Look, the recommendation is actually to tip it into another cup first and mix that again and then tip it on. But I've never found that makes any difference at all. So I just think, why would you waste another plastic cup, you know? Okay, so that's ready now. Okay, so, and the reason I haven't given you measurements for sized canvases and things like that today is because, you'll all have different sized boards that you're working with. Okay, just so you know, I'm just going to make sure I've got enough on there. Right, I'm going to cover that cup. Actually, I'm going to take my stick out and clean it. And I'm going to cover that cup and put it over here so it can go straight outside when I take that out. Okay. Oh, look what's happening. I didn't level this one. Do you notice how I didn't put the level on? It's all running towards me. So the cups underneath here mustn't be quite as good as the other ones. Dang. Or the board maybe. But anyway, we'll see if we can just get this happening. So I showed you before how I was pushing it over in a wave, right? Now, instead of pushing it over, you just get that wave along the edge. And all you're really looking to do is wet that edge with the resin. It doesn't have to be a big, thick, because I'm quite used to doing it now. I tend to just roll the wave along, and I know how much resin to have in front of the card so that it pushes it and the wave rolls along the edge without going over. But when you're first learning, all you need to do is just wet the edge with that resin right up to the edge. Even if it's super duper thin, just wetting it. I'm a little bit shaky. Time to go and watch the Instagram video, everybody. No, this is working out quite good. Okay, so once I've wet that edge like that with the little card, or with whatever, look, you might want to, let me turn you around a little bit. Turn around this way. You could even use this, look. If you don't want to do the rolling resin, which is a little bit more advanced, but when you start to get a bit more time savvy and you think, oh, I don't want to sit here with a little paddle pop stick or a scraper. But so the idea is just to wet it so that it's got that shiny wet resin right up to the edge there. And then you'll see what happens. I can push the thicker parts over from the middle. It's not going to push it over the edge. It's basically going to go right to the edge of where that wet resin stops, and it ain't going to go no further. I'm really, really surprised that this is working, because I'm definitely not used to working with the resin that's this thin, because they were brand new bottles of Barnes I just opened. There was too much resin in there for the air conditioner to cool the bottles down, so it's really super thin compared to normal. You'll notice if you're in Oz and you've got the Barnes resin, I've got a code too. It's probably not going to be working forever, and it's not a code I make any money from, guys. It's simply just a one-off code that you can use on the Barnes site, and it's Shelly20, and it'll give you 20% off. It's one time only though. It's just like a little gift code for once only, for Barnes to just say thank you. Okay, so basically that I haven't had any spills there at all. So that's the difference between, you got to make sure you clean your tools as well. So get that resin off your tools. Just trying to see, make sure that that's all good. Yeah, so wipe the resin off your tools, guys, but also take your tools and do the washing up, do your soapy washing up on the tools as well, because even though you've wiped it off with the wipes, and I know you're all freaking out, so I'll get this outside, the residue's still on there, so you don't want to be touching that with your hand. Okay, so I'm going quite quickly. I've got it. If you're really worried about bubbles, look, you can torch twice. You can torch now, you can leave it for 5 to 8 minutes, let some more bubbles come back up, and give it a second go. But you are risking in that time dust getting on it while you're waiting for, more bubbles to come out of it. So I wish I could pick this up and show the piggies. I wonder if it's probably gonna make it go off the edge. You know what? I won't do that because somebody would love that painting, so I'm not going to ruin it just to show you. But tell you what I'll do, I'll pop a picture in the group tomorrow of the finished product of both of those so you can see the difference. Probably much better off going for This one could be really lopsided because I don't think it's very level, but anyway, I guess we'll see in the morning. Or when I peek later. No, just kidding. All right, guys, I'm just going to get this out of here and I'll be back. Right. So that's the two ways that I like to do it. You can do, maybe it's a little bit closer to me over here. You can pick it up and tilt resin just like you would be stretching a bloom or a fluid painting swipe out. But yeah, the only problem with that, like I was just saying before, is you might end up putting it back down onto something that's not as level as you set it up to start with. If you're one of these people that actually uses the level, you know, that might bother you. Like that was just a total stuff up me. You saw what happened there. All the resin started going. So even if you turn that around, it's going to just start going the other way, but you'll never get it to stay in the middle enough because it's going to keep self-leveling for probably 40 minutes. So the first section of curing is about 40 minutes that takes for it to be kind of like set. And then, you know, in the next 4 hours, another section of the curing kind of happens in the next 4 hours where it becomes, I guess, almost touch dry, but not, no, I won't say that because I don't want you to do it, but I'll tell you anyway. But yeah, so I have reached in and removed tape at the 4 hour mark because it leaves it a little bit more smoother on the side. But I decided not to keep doing that because I was getting that the tape was flipping up and getting on it, and I was ruining pieces left, right, and center. And as you know, that meant I was peeking when I shouldn't have been, and it ends up in just, yeah, it's trying to teach you a lesson with all the disasters that can happen if you try to remove your tape at that point. You're better off just let the whole thing cure. 24 hours, it's touch dry, but it's not actually cured properly till 72 hours. So if you want that real hard cured piece that's not going to scratch as easy or anything like that, then you're looking at the 72 hours. But you can definitely, you know, you can get your painting out, take the tape off after 24 hours. It's going to be nice and cured. Try not to touch it too much on the surface still. You might find that in between the 4 and the 24 hours, you know, you can press your finger onto it and it will leave a fingerprint on there. Even though it looks and feels dry, it's really prone to dinting. It can still collect little pieces of dust here and there between the 4 and the 24 hours, even though it does look like it's already kind of cured. It's not really, it's pretending to be cured. So don't let it trick you. Make sure that you wait that whole time. And I can tell you now, if you pick that 10 up to peak, there's dust going to be getting under there. Don't do it. Out of bounds. All right, I'll take, Kathy just asked, doesn't my mum work at Spotlight in Coffs anymore? No, she doesn't. She's retired. Well done, mummy. All those years working at Spotlight, and it was pretty good having a mum to work at Spotlight too, because yeah, she's in the know with all the stuff that's in there, and the craft and the art and the paint, and but yeah, love you, mum. I don't even think you're watching this time, but anyway, if you watch it back, I love you, mum. Hi, Connie. All right, I'll take another question if that's okay. Okay, the question is, can I show a domed piece that's already domed and finished? Oh gosh. Oh guys, I'll have to go look through my box and see what I've got in there, but it's right up there with where all my stored pieces are. I think I do have a piece up there that was domed. This piece here. Oh, I hope my girl's not watching. This is a present for somebody. And if she is watching, she's going to know that it's her present. I don't even really know if you're going to be able to see. So this one has the little, this one was to the edge one, see? So you can kind of see where I've taped it down a little bit there. See that? So it's kind of like got a cap of resin on it in a way. I feel like this is the neatest. I don't want to show you the front too much because I don't want my girl to see what I'm giving her, but this is the neatest way. So trying to think of the last piece that I domed, and I don't think I've got anything down here. Let's see. Oh, I do have something interesting I can show you with. No, I don't. They've all been taped, but I like when I do, okay, quick comparison. These boards, if you're using an MDF ring board, the MDF I like to tape up on the bottom only, and I like to let the paint go over the sides of the MDF or paint the MDF. MDF isn't quite as attractive as the timber that's on the side of the square birch panels, which is this stuff here. So, you know, it's just, this timber's a lot different. So I love this timber. You can stain it any color that you wish, or you can just pop a little bit of oil on it. So if you've got these types of boards with the proper sturdy timber frame, I like to tape right to the top. So this is resin that has been poured with the tape right to the top, or make sure that the tape doesn't come past the top. That's really, really important. It's going to stuff up that part of your painting. You're going to take the tape off and you might have a hard bit there. And then if you're like me, you might get really OCD and try to get the sandpaper out and just get that hard bit off, and you might end up sanding the top a little bit and having to do another bloody coat. So yeah, that's triggered me into showing you the third way, which is taping it all the way to the top, which I was forgetting to show you because I haven't done one of these timber boards for quite a while. But yeah, nice wooden edge that you want on display if you want to stain it, tape right to the top. MDF and canvas, tape just down a tiny little bit because you've got this ply section at the top here. It's okay to have the paint and the resin coming a little tiny bit, like a millimeter down here is fine. Feel free to tape it right to the top if you want to dome it. If you want to pour it over, do as per usual, like I was showing you, where you put the tape slightly down here a little bit. And you'll find that the paint comes over a little bit, the resin comes over a little bit, and then you can either peel that off and you'll have your pour that's come over the side, or you can paint the edge. I'm tending to start painting the edges of these, you know, white or black, just because it just looks a little bit tidier. Or just let the paint flow over when you first pour on it, and then do it as I was just showing with you with the squares. Another one. Okay, good question. So the question is, how long do I wait before I move a piece that I have resined? And what was the second bit? Oh, and how long do I wait before sanding for the second coat? That's a really good question. So, I'm a little bit of a rule breaker. I try not to be, but for me, look, 24 to 30 hours I would take to something with the sandpaper. You can always tell when it really is cured after the 3 days, because the sandpaper, it will be like sanding timber or something else that's hard and rigid. If you try to sand it too quickly before it's had, you know, the 2 to 3 day time period to kind of cure like really properly, you'll notice that where's my bit of sandpaper? yeah, so when it's fully cured and it's perfectly ready, you can just go for it like straight away. And you notice it's very dusty. You should definitely, if you're not going to have your respirator on when you're sanding the resin, go outside somewhere where it's really where it's outdoors, and definitely at the minimum a dust mask, because that stuff's flying up into the air. It's like powdery stuff, and it's essentially still resin, even though it's not really doing that chemical reaction thing anymore. The powder itself is probably just as bad to breathe in as the fumes with the wet resin. So look, I don't really know for sure about if it's as bad, but I mean, dusty resin, it's like you see surfboard shapers with little dust masks on, and they're like, all the epoxy fiberglass and everything, and I just think, oh my God, you're mad. Like, I would probably, if you're going to go to the trouble of purchasing a proper good respirator, there's no reason why you shouldn't be wearing it outside. Look, they are annoying to wear, guys. I'm not going to lie. They can feel a little bit, claustrophobic-y and weird to start with, but once you get used to wearing them, and you know that you're protecting your health and it's worth it, then it's just one of those uncomfortable things that you just get used to. It's just part of the rules, and you have to do it. So yeah, what I was saying was, if you try to sand it too early, look, you're still going to be able to do it, but it's just the sandpaper picks up kind of, it's almost like it's a little bit moist, so it's not really going to be as easy to sand, and it's going to be it's going to ball up a little bit on the sandpaper. You'll see the specks of the resin collecting up on the sandpaper because they're not quite dry dust yet. But look, all you're trying to do is get that grit into it. So I'd say, look, 48 hours, go for it. Yes. Okay. Do we have time for a few more, or if you're so happy to hang around? Yeah. I'll take some more questions, guys, if I don't. Sorry, go on. Okay, good question. So the question was about temperature. Does the resin, does the room that you're resining in, or the area that you're resining in, have to be more than 22 degrees? Look, it's not a hard and fast rule, but they say, well, I think they say, I don't know, I say, am I important enough to say? Maybe we need to Google this a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure 22 degrees to around 27 degrees is the right environment to be pouring in. Probably 25 would be your perfect temperature point. It's pretty hard to get a room exactly that. Even if you've got a thermometer in there, it's not going to be fully accurate for all parts of the room. So you basically, if it's really humid, I think it's 65% humidity and up, definitely not. It's really going to stuff your resin up in the humidity. It's probably worse than heat, if I'm honest, because it's wet. The air's wet, and resin hates water. Doesn't want to be anywhere near the stuff. But yeah, temperature wise, you want to keep it, look, it doesn't have to be 22 to 27 for the whole 24 hours, but it's quite important for it to be in that right bracket for at least the first 4 hours, when it does that initial hardening thing that it does. You want it to be really quite controlled, and you just don't want it going up and down. Like, you don't want it going from 26 to 22 to 27 to 21 while it's trying to cure, because it's relying on you to have that temperature steady for it while it's still it just needs to do its thing for that first few hours. And then it's not as important for the next 20 hours. You can get away with going a couple of degrees out of the brackets either way, but you do notice what the heat does when it's trying to cure, and it can make it kind of, I've noticed it gets quite wibbly wobbly, like That's always the word I've used for it, wibbly wobbly. I guess it's because it's not dimply, because we know that the dimples are where there's the circular ditches where they're falling in like that. It's more of a wavy kind of surface, and I think what that is the heat is just sucking it and shrinking it to the point where it's, I don't know, it's just making these little wavy, little weird kind of things. So I've never really had a problem curing it in the too cold, because I'm in Queensland, Australia, and it's never bloody too cold here. It's only ever too hot. So yeah, I just think make sure you read the data sheets of the resin and see what it does. It tells you on the data sheets. You can look the data sheets up online. They should be delivered in your box. So it's sometimes. So this one here from Barnes, it has lots of really cool information on it, like that I don't understand, but it's got pot life is 50 minutes. Okay, so basically, yeah, it's got cure time at 25 degrees Celsius, 18 to 24 hours. So yeah, like I was saying before, 24 hours, great. You know, take it out, sit it on the shelf, look at it. Don't try to take it in the car to the markets and sell it yet, because, you know, it's going to hit something in the car. It's really easily dintable still between 24 and 72 hours. It's kind of just, it's fragile. Like, you don't want to leave it under the tent for the 3 days, because you want to be able to get that tape off, and the sooner you get the tape off, the better, the cleaner it's going to come off. If that tape fuses that 72 hours onto the side of the painting, you might have a little bit of trouble getting that off cleanly. And you might need to use a little bit of sandpaper to get the blue tape off up near the top of the taping. But yeah, just check whatever resin you're using. I think they're all pretty much the same when it comes to the temperature, but they have different pot lives, different workable times. Even though this says 50 minutes, I've never been able to get 50 minutes working time out of it, because I just mix such small amounts, and because there's no pigment or color in there, I think it tends to just, it tends to want to start to cure like really quickly for me. Which is probably why I haven't delved into the colored pouring of the resin, but that's really something that I've been feeling drawn to lately. Especially with the piggies, I just want to get stuck into some colored resin pours. I'm reading the questions, but I might be jumping ahead too far. I want to get to a couple of people that were asking earlier, and then I will get into the rest after the live is finished. Ready? Okay, so the question is, thanks Connie, the question is, have you ever mixed up your resin and sat it into a pot of water to help eliminate the bubbles? That's kind of irrelevant, because I'll let you know why. The bubbles are meant to be there when you first mix your resin up. If bubbles are a problem for you and you really don't want to pour them onto your surface, even though you're going to torch them anyway, and if your resin's good quality, it should have that air release technology. So, you know, popping the large bubbles, if you've got your good quality resin, the tiny little pinprick bubbles, not that I recommend getting so close down to your resin piece while it's wet, but if you do look on the side in the right light, look, you can see them coming out and popping. They just keep coming out and keep popping, like, you know, all the little leftover ones. And the 4 hours it takes for that coat to cure, it's plenty of time for those tiny bubbles to come out and pop in time, so that you don't get any stuck in there. Now, if for some reason, and I'm veering off the whole pot in the pot of water question, but no, I wouldn't really think that all that's going to do is change if it's cold water or warm water, it's going to change the temperature of your resin that you're mixing up. And if you've already, you know, done your room temperature, that's just going to throw it out. So I don't really think that's going to have any kind of like benefit is what I'm looking for. I don't think it's going to have any kind of benefit trying to put it in the water to pop the bubbles. But what you can do if you're really worried about bubbles, or if you are having some problems with some of the larger bubbles and you're not able to get them out and you want to have it looking a little bit more clear before you actually pour it, you can mix, you can do your A, do your B, stir it up with a stick, sit the cup for a second. You only have to sit it for probably 5 minutes, and you'll notice that when you pick it up again, it has a layer on the top, like the bubbles will already start all coming to the top. So you can just scoop them off with a little spoon, give it a little tiny stir instead of whipping it up, give it a little tiny stir and then pour it, and it's going to be really nice and glossy and lots more bubble free than if you just go straight down with it. But there's no reason why you shouldn't just pour it straight on, because that's what your torch is for. So I prefer to just get it on quickly. The fresher the better. And yeah, just nail those bubbles with the torch, and Bob's your uncle. Don't even know if you say that where you live. That's would have sounded really freaking weird if you don't, but it just came out. We say it here. Bob's your uncle. Means everything's okay. It's just another ridiculous Australian saying. Okay, so one thing I just thought of that I wanted to remind you of is, if you are doing small bloom, if you are just starting out and you're coating small blooms, these thin plastic cups, hold them at the top and keep the rest of your hand off the cup, okay, when you're mixing it. Now, the reason I say that is if you hold it like this, right, and you're mixing it and it's a really thin cup, you wouldn't believe how hot you can make the resin with just the body heat coming from your hand through that thin plastic there. You can actually heat it up so much to the point that it does that weird catalyst chemical thingy reaction thing where the resin actually gets very, very, very hot, and it will cure in about 7 minutes time in the cup. You'll put the cup down, because I've done it. I was holding my hand on it and mixing it. I'm like, gee, it's getting really thin. And then I was like, whoa, it's getting like really hot. And it was back when I didn't really know what I was doing that well. And I put it down, and like 5 minutes later, I came back after I had prepped something up a bit more where I was going to do my pour. I picked it up and it was like rock solid, but it burnt my hand through the cup. It went really, really hot. And it just, yeah, it's something to do with heating up the resin to a really high temperature when it's already mixed together. It's a really bad thing. I'm not 100% sure why it happens or what it's called. It's called a catalyst chemical reaction or something. But anyway, it basically means you've ruined that pot, and you may as well just let it set in there. And you know, if you feel it getting way too hot to even hold the cup, yeah, I don't know. I probably wouldn't even use it because it's probably gone beyond the point where it's going to work for you properly anyway. So just be really careful to keep that cup cooler on the outside when you're mixing. It's a really, really good tip. And I've had that bad mistake with it, so I can speak from experience. Next. Okay, so I'm still searching for the perfect MDF round, if I'm honest. I haven't really been 100% happy with the boards I've been getting lately. How do I sign the back? Okay, well, I basically just don't even have one here that's got it on there. Where is one? Just look. Yeah, so I have this pretty cool tool actually, which I'd really like to get using soon. I can't even find it in this. Oh, here it is. Here, I haven't even opened it. But so yeah, I want to start burning my signature or / logo into the back with this, because I feel like it's a really cool look on the back of the timber art boards. But at this stage, I basically just if it's a commission for somebody special or it's a special order, I like to write a little note, just, you know, to the person, and I basically just do my regular signature. Sometimes, so I have a collection of artwork that are numbered, so hashtag whatever number it might be. Or occasionally I do name them, but I don't don't like to put the pressure on myself to name them all the time, because I don't know if you've ever tried to name like 150 abstract paintings like that all look like flowers. It can be quite like annoying to me to try to think of names that sound really cool and arty and abstracty, and you know, it just does my head in. So in the end, I just thought, right, I want my collectors to be able to have that number, you know, like, so that, you know, the lower the number, you know, they feel like it's kind of special because it was early on in my art career when I was just starting out. I still do have number 1 that I've kept for myself. But yeah, 2 I think I'm up to, gosh, I think I'm up to like 185 or something now. And you know, they're not massive, big, huge paintings. I number all of my artworks that I sell, well, most of them anyway. I don't number the ones that I just give away as freebies, which I do quite a lot of the time, probably too much. But yeah, the sellable ones I like to number. So it would be a number, hashtag whatever. It'll be my signature, and I like to just pop the year that I made it on there as well, just for people looking back later in 20 years when they find it in someone's cupboard or whatever, they know who painted it and when it was actually done. And I do keep quite a lot of paintings for myself as well. Sometimes I get really fussy and I think I'm not going to sell that because it's got a tiny little something wrong with it that, you know, that I can see, and it forces me to not want to sell it because I feel like it's got a defect in it. But that's just me being an absolute perfectionist with the paintings and the resin. But yeah, I wish I could let go of a few of those, you know, like, it's pretty bad because sometimes I show people and they can't even see what I'm looking at. And they're like, Shelley, you're so silly. But yeah, so name, the year and either a number or a name for the actual painting. So this one, I'm going to resin this one. Chris, if you're watching this back later, this is the best palette of colors here. I bloody love it. It's really fiery. I think it's, what is it? Boogie, Grenache, cinnamon, and I put some free flow magenta in mine. And I can just tell it's going to be so amazing when it's got the resin on it. And then I've done this double one as well. You might have watched the cool little reel of this one on Instagram. But I'm going to resin those ones too later when I've got my mask on. Or as my son would say, that watches way too many American programs, do you have your mask, mummy? Your mask? I'm like, I don't know whether you've been hearing my American friends speaking, but... A question. Let's get through a few more questions and then I'll have to jump in and answer the rest because we're running out of time. We'll do another 3 questions, okay? Okay, so the question is could I please clarify the exact time that I wait after my painting, after I've done my bloom and I'm waiting for it to dry, how long do I wait before I put the resin on it? Because is it Connie was saying that she has heard 2 to 3 weeks. Lots of places say 2 to 3 weeks. That's just absolute baloney. Like 2 to 3 weeks, it'll be crusting up by then, needing some love. Look, like I said before, I stand by that. Like, I did this 2 days ago. It's dry. I have no problem. I'm just going to resin that straight away this afternoon. And I already know from experience and all my successful resin coating pours that, and I can only speak for my ingredients in this course that I teach. I don't know about Floetrol paintings or different mediums that are underneath it. Maybe there is a reason why you do need to wait longer, but you can be guaranteed that if it's Shelley Art Style pouring medium and it's touch dry, you can basically go for it. I've never had an accident doing it 24 hours later when it's dry. In fact, I don't wait around ever, especially for that resin, because it's not a problem. So yeah, definitely 24 to 48. If you want to wait 3 days just to be sure, then wait 3 days, but there's really no need. Touch dry, go for it. All right, next one. Okay. The question was, you wanted me to demonstrate resin on the smaller pieces like jewelry. Yeah, look, it's basically the same as the doming resin. Like, your resin's not going to come off the side of a piece of jewelry that you're making, and you know, a lot of people are using the little things where it comes up on the side anyway, so that you don't need to worry about it flowing over. Yeah, it's basically just the same as I showed you with the doming. You just wet it to the edge and then fill up the middle, and yeah, it's basically the same thing as just the general doming, but I'm not going to be doing a demo on that today. Sorry. All right, I'll take one more question and then I'll jump in and answer you guys. I think so. I'm just thinking about whether I've answered that question or not. Do I do only the question was, do I do MDF as well as canvas or just MDF? Yeah, no, I think I answered that before. We'll take a different one. The quick answer is yes, I love my timber boards for resin. Of course, it's flatter, it's easier, you get away with less coats, and don't go over a 10-inch canvas to resin unless it's a double piece like this. Then you won't have a problem because you're looking at two quite, you know, they're framed up behind them quite solid, so that's a different story if they're two pieces. But yeah, so 10 by 10 maximum for the canvas, and make sure it's good quality. But I will take another one because I think I've covered that before. If there's one there that you can spot. Oh, okay, that's a cool question. So the question is, can you spread resin with just a hair comb? And the answer to that is, yeah, you can spread resin with anything. You can fold up a sheet of paper till it's like, you know, thick. You might have a little bit of problem with that soaking up the resin if you don't do it quick enough, but cut up pieces of cardboard. You would have seen back in my Instagram, I don't know, probably 6 months ago, I couldn't find anything, and I was waiting on my cards, and I was just stuck for like a piece of something to spread the resin with, and I actually did get the hair comb out, because this hair comb had quite a level bottom of it on it with the comby bits. But what I will say is, you know, they sell the resin combs to spread the resin with, and they've got the little chunky triangle bits out of the comb, and it's meant to, I'm talking about something I don't really know here, but I feel like the purpose of it is probably so that it separates through that resin as you comb it, and it's really getting down and getting the air bubbles out, and I think it's to make sure you get a really even coverage with no nasty surprises coming up later, like ditches or something that maybe there's a bit of air trapped on the surface and you push the resin over the top of it. So what the comb would probably do is make sure that resin's getting all the way down to the surface, and then it melts back in together. Obviously it looks really cool when you go like that because it leaves a big comby stripy looking thing, and then it all melts back together again. But if I'm honest, I didn't really like the way the comb went over to the edge, because I like to do that wave that flows over the edge in a nice long line, and that's how I know I'm going to get that nice domed edge that's going to be even. The comb comes across, and because it's got the splits in it, it's not pushing it across that edge evenly. So for me, I don't like them. But yeah, you can definitely use a hair comb. I had a crack at it, didn't really think it was any different. Had to throw the comb out, obviously, because it just got all stuck in the, couldn't get it out of the long bits and stuff. So it was a bit of a fail for me, but and I just think it's a bit of a waste of money. I wouldn't bother buying one. I can watch myself freezing up on the screen. Guys, I'll leave it there. I don't know if it's going to be like that for you, but I'm starting to freeze up a little bit, which is my cue to leave now. Yeah, so thanks for joining again. Hope you got something out of that. And yeah, don't forget you can watch it back later. And if you missed anything, yeah, just watch the whole thing again. Would be a really good idea, because if you're a beginner and you're first starting out, you definitely don't want to miss anything, and especially all the safety gear and things like that. I'll probably write I might write an actual list, a list of the supplies that you need before you even are going to get started. And we'll pop that in there somewhere as well, so that yeah, you know exactly what you need before you want to get started. So yeah, good luck if you do want to take the leap into the resin world. It can be really amazing, but just remember that it's not as easy as just setting up to paint some blooms. There's a lot more things that you need to have in place, and make sure that you have your area ready. And yeah, make sure you post in and show us your first tries, or yeah, if you've got any tips that I didn't cover, because as I said, I'm not a fully professional resin artist. I just taught myself in my own way that's working for me, so I thought I'd share that with you. If you had something more to contribute, please pop it in there, because yeah, every bit of extra information is good with this sort of stuff. All right, guys, love you heaps, and I will catch yous at the next one. Okay, you can go to sleep now. All right, guys, love yous. Bye. Ta-da.